but I'm starting like literally 2 minutes while this goes. The meeting is on. Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to have Shelly Tygielski. I got it?
You did it.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to have Shelly as our guest today. For those who do not know me, I'm Gladys Mizrahi. I'm Commissioner of the City of Aventura, and I'm also proud to be one of the founders of Pandemic of Love Aventura. But we're not talking about that yet because I've been told that Shelly has an amazing story. So we're going to hear everything about it before her book is published for next year. So that's a little plug-in that I wanted to let everybody know. So Shelly, please introduce yourself before we get all the questions.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you so much for being such a great partner in kindness. Really appreciate that as well. So a little bit about myself. Many people in South Florida might know me as the person who teaches meditation, or pre-COVID taught meditation for the last 4.5 years on the beach in Hollywood on Sunday mornings. Many of you have been to our meditation sessions with our Sand Tribe. And, we really were able to, in the last 4.5 years, form a wonderful community. When I formed that community, which really was accidentally, I had been a 20-year meditation practitioner. Any types of certification or, education that I had around the concept of mindfulness or meditation was really very much for my own edification and for my own inner journey and inner work that I wanted to.
I read that you had huge groups in each meditation.
Yeah, no, there were hundreds and hundreds of people who would show up on Sunday mornings, and really one of the most incredible parts of it, besides the fact that we started, which was 12 people back in 2015. Was the fact that because I think it was in an unlikely space that was non-intimidating, very inviting, very accessible to everyone, it really was such a diverse group of people, not the normal people that you would typically see in a yoga studio or in a meditation studio, or which generally a lot of the people are middle-aged women who, can afford Lululemon and can, have the time to invest in themselves. And so the beautiful part about our community, and it still stands true today, is that there were people that became friends and that would sit next to each other that were, 80-year-olds from Aventura to, 20-year-olds from Boca to billionaires and women who are single mothers living in Section 8 housing to, just people of all political affiliations, like people that would come wearing a certain party's shirt and people that would come wearing a different party's shirt. But yet somehow on the beach, we were able to congregate and really just see the humanity in each other. And the similarities of all of life's trials and tribulations that I think we all think we're alone going through, but truly when we start to share what our anxieties and issues are, we recognize that we're really not alone, that there's a lot of other people who are going through the same types of emotions and feelings and struggles, and that when we share the burdens, we have the burdens, right? We cut them in half because other people can help us carry them on our shoulders. So at the time when I started the meditation group with my 12 friends at the beach, I actually still had a full-time job, was gainfully employed, was, an executive in a mid-sized firm. And I had steadily climbed up the corporate ladder for almost 2 decades. And I found that over time, my purpose, my mission in life was really not aligned with what I was doing, which I was successful at, you know? So in my mind, that was very hard to align those two things, because here I am being successful and climbing up the corporate ladder and making a good living, and, you know, was highly respected by my peers and people in the industry. And yet I was absolutely super miserable every single day, you know, driving to work, not because I didn't enjoy the people that I worked with, but really because I just realized that, you know, I wanted to, hello, Chantal. Really because I wanted to, you know, make sure that I really wanted to live more of an authentic life. And so when I finally started to teach at the beach, it became harder and harder for me to ignore the calling that I felt that I had, you know, the calling to be authentic, to teach people how to calm their anxieties, just be more mindful, be courageous enough and brave enough to share their experiences with other people. And more importantly, figure out ways that we can create equity within our communities. And I say equity because that's a very, you know, important word. I think a lot of people feel and may be, you know, maybe have different definitions of what they think equity is. But in my mind, you know, it really is based on a premise and the concept of enough is a feast. And I feel like, you know, there are those of us who have enough, and, you know, there's only so much you can eat, right, on your plate when you go to the buffet, right? And so the idea is that if we just really just satiate the enough of what we need, that there could be more than plenty to go around and to help others in our community, you know, who maybe are not so fortunate. And in order to do that, I think we need to, you know, basically remove some of the obstacles that are facing those individuals that are in needs. And some of those obstacles include, I think, one of the hardest things that it is for people to do, which is ask for help. It's so hard to ask for help because you feel like you're deficient, maybe, you know, like you're not enough, like it's, you know, you're embarrassed, there's just so many reasons. And I think that when we can create systems that are institutionalized or formalized, right, that can help to create that kind of equity, and make it easier for people to get what they need, basic needs, that it can create the kind of world I think that we really want to truly be living in, where we're just all humans, you know, and we're part of this one big human global family, and we recognize that our actions affect not just ourselves, but a lot of other people as well. And so with that, you know, one of the things that I started to do as having this platform of this meditation community was I started to think about different ways of formalizing this. And so we several times a year would put together different mutual aid concepts that were for our community members, for people in need, you know, around the holiday season, around back to school, whenever there was like a hurricane or something like that. And that really became the premise or the pillar, you know, that informed what eventually became the organization Pandemic of Love in March. And you know, and it's something that I'm incredibly, I don't want to say I'm shocked, because I always thought that it would be something that people could easily adopt. But certainly I was pleasantly surprised that the nerve that it struck around the world with individuals who finally were like, wow, this is such a simple concept. Like, this is such a simple way for us to directly be able to give to one another, create that equity, that equilibrium, and to get to know people, you know? That's the beautiful part about what this organization does. So I could take a quick step back and tell you what Pandemic of Love is. For those of you who don't know, first of all, there is a Pandemic of Love chapter in Aventura. Thanks to Gladys and her amazing team of friends and good Samaritans. And basically, Pandemic of Love is the concept of mutual aid. And I'll define mutual aid in very simple terms. Mutual aid is when your parents or grandparents or somebody who was older than you used to tell you the term back in the day. Back in the day when we were kids, everybody knew their neighbor. And if this neighbor was sick, we would bring soup over. And if this neighbor lost their job, we'd make sure that they were taken care of. And if this neighbor, had a death in the family, we all made sure that the kids were okay, and that we kind of it took a village, right? And certainly here in the States, at least, and I think really very much so in most of the westernized world, through the industrial age, we've kind of gotten more removed from that. And through the technological age, even though there's this sense that we're connected, we're really not that connected. We don't know our neighbors. We don't know what they're really going through in their life, like what hardships they have, what stressors they have, what bills they can't pay. It's like we don't talk about those things. Through social media, we get to witness the highlight reels of people's lives. We don't see the outtakes, we get to see only the glorified version most of the time of what people want us to see. And so the idea here is that if we can get back to basics, if we can get back to back in the day, right, through a concept of mutual aid, by connecting individuals in a community that have something to offer with somebody who needs what they're offering. And it doesn't have to be financial, right? If you're a person who needs financial help, but can offer time or a ride to somebody, or can go walk somebody's dog, or can do a welfare visit, or call an elder person who's lonely on the phone and speak to them for an hour a week. There's so many different ways that a concept of mutual aid community can actually manifest. What Pandemic of Love aimed to do starting in March was really to try to fulfill, first and foremost, the financial needs, because people couldn't fill their fridge up with food. They couldn't buy diapers. They couldn't buy formula. They couldn't keep their lights on before, utility companies announced that they weren't going to turn their lights off. And guess what? In many states around the country, there are no more moratoriums on evictions. People are getting actively evicted. People are getting their lights turned off in many different states and cities where unfortunately after July 31st, it was kind of like back to normal, when certainly we all know we're not back to normal. So we're really here as an organization to help people feel seen and heard, connect them with individuals, perfect strangers who are good Samaritans that care and want to help them directly, and make sure that everybody has enough.
Shelly, I have to ask you, because when we started Pandemic of Love and the messages started coming in with people needing help, and literally we were overwhelmed and stressed out that we had passed several days and we couldn't find the donors to help them. How do you overcome all these messages? When you get the messages of families living in a car, that they have been cut off their light, that they had been evicted, single mothers. I know I've heard all the stories on my side, and literally I can't sleep. So you hear them multiplied by 1,000.
Yeah. Well, so I think you don't overcome that. I think all of these stories imprint on your heart and they inform your work even more. I think it fuels me to never give up and to try to help as many people as we can, because I know, and I remember I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish family. My grandfather always used to say the basically the phrase that's in the Old Testament of if you save one person's life, it's as if you save the world. And so when you think about that concept and really the ripple effect that can happen when you can help to provide for just even one person. And so I just really try to focus on the success stories that we have, the people that we were able to help that day, you know, and in a manner of speaking, try to kind of create a balance between the two scales, you know, between the stories of the individuals that are still in need that we haven't been able to find donors for, and then the people that we have been. And, you know, we could just, every day I have to go to bed thinking like, I did the best I could today. And if I really feel like I did the best that I could, then that's all I could do, right? It's
You're
just
totally right. Shelly, the other part that I wanted to ask you was, you grew up in a very religious family, like, and now you're not religious. What was that transition, and is your family still really religious? And what's the whole, because I also personally, I have a brother that's really Orthodox.
Yeah.
And
well,
it's just complicated.
I mean, I don't really think it's complicated. So I am religious, but I have a different religion. Love is my religion. And so when love is your religion, it's not that complicated. Life is really simple when you just kind of define like, and you really, really just authentically love and want to give kindness and compassion to every being on this planet, every sentient being, not just human being, but every sentient being on this planet. And so, and I think that when you never give up on that premise, it helps to bring the other people around. And so, like, yeah, I grew up in a Sephardic Orthodox, you know, Jewish home. My mother is still Shomer Shabbat. My mother still keeps a Glatt kosher kitchen, you know, and we honor her. My husband, was raised as Catholic, you know, basically we honor her. We go to every Jewish holiday. When we were down in Florida, we would, you know, go to Shabbat dinners. You know, I still like the Shabbat candles, and you know, it's something that I know is very important to her. And so I seek the spirituality, you know, that is in that. And I look for the common denominators, I think, that are really at the intersection of all contemplative practices. And I see myself as a spiritual person, you know, I see myself as an individual who still talks to source, but I just don't necessarily believe that I have to speak to God or source or he or she or however you want to define it in a specific language or a specific way, or, you know, do a certain thing. I very much am mindful and appreciate every sip of, you know, a water that I take and every rainbow that I see. And I deeply, deeply feel when somebody experiences a loss, and really keep to the tenets of tikkun olam, which is, you know, repairing the world. And I just don't think there's one right or wrong way to do that. So as long as you're, you know, a good person and a good human being, and that's really what I taught my son. You know, my son, who grew up in a household with a guy that was raised Polish Catholic and a woman that was raised, you know, Orthodox
Yeah.
With Buddhist philosophy constantly ever present in the house. You know, you could say that the kid would have turned out to be dysfunctional, but when you ask him, and even when you at a very young age, you know, he's 18 now, but if you ask him at an earlier age, like, you know, what are you, or what do you, you know, he would say, like, I'm a human being. That's what I am. I'm human. And so, you know, and the philosophy was just, you give love, you get love. It's karmic. It's just this beautiful infinity. So how do we get along with people? I think that if we want love from people, if we want to be more loved in life, we got to give more love. If we want to have more opportunities in our life, give people opportunities. If you want to, you know, be respected, respect people. If you want more kindness, be kindness. And so even when people are horrible to you, you know, I had horrible experiences after I married my husband with certain family members who, you know, basically disowned us and said, like, you know, see ya, you know, for no other reason than the fact that my husband was not born Jewish. The fact that he's a great guy and a great husband and was a great father, all these things, you know. And fortunately, you know, I just never gave up, because when you come from a place of love, then you're always willing to forgive, and you're always willing to keep the door open.
I love that. For me, the most important thing is respect yourself, respect others, so we can respect each other. It doesn't matter what you believe in or what they believe in. As long as there's mutual respect, you're gonna get it. My other question. With everything that's going on, and now suicide going up, and people feeling very overwhelmed, you were able to help people with all the mindfulness and meditation. What about now? Are you still doing that to help the people there?
Yeah, so I still teach every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. here on Facebook Live and also on Instagram. I actually broadcast on both platforms. So in 1 hour, you know, it's usually a talk about a specific topic, and then it's followed by meditation. So this is open and free for anyone. And I also specifically have been dedicating my time to 2 segments of the population currently that I feel really warrants, you know, dedicated attention. And that is individuals that have already been really affected by trauma, individuals affected by gun violence in our country. So I work a lot with communities affected by mass shootings and communities that are affected every day by gun violence. And, you know, a lot of the incidences and issues that are happening, not just around the pandemic, but, you know, with us trying to eradicate systemic racism and really with the anti-racist, you know, efforts that are taking place in this country, I'm trying to make sure that they have the tools that they need to build resilience and to not fall back into re-traumatization, if you will. And the second population that I've been working with is really with activists who are working in different areas of social justice in this country and have been for a very long time. Activism fatigue is very real. Burnout is very real. And so if we can use mindfulness as a tool to build resilience, then, and which we can, by the way, scientifically proven we can. And if I could teach them how to use that, if they're a volunteer or staff member, then they can stay in this fight, so to speak, or these efforts for the long haul, understanding that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And certainly it has been a marathon.
I know, since it started. But before we touch on something, because I also wanted to hear Chantal's feedback on the whole systemic racism, which again is starting to, caused by last night's events, that now we're seeing again the protests, the looting and everything. Right. Don't you think that doing more gun control can eliminate a lot of the mass shootings and everything?
Can it eliminate it?
Well, because I'm seeing, for example, there were 2 visions. One was the fact that a lot of the videos are very violent. So we're teaching our kids and the next generation, like all the videos are about killing, about violence. And those are the ones that our kids are watching. And that was part of being the US, the largest, most affected country in the world with gun violence and mass shootings. But when doing a little bit of research, Japan is the #1 video addicts in the world. Mm-hmm. They play videos like crazy. They are the ones that invented it, the ones that are there. And they haven't had a mass shooting or any shooting at all since 20 years ago, when they really put very strict gun control acts.
Correct.
So that gives us a clear example.
Yeah, no, of course. Look at New Zealand. Look what Sweden did. Look what New Zealand did. Look what Australia did. You know, after it took one incident to really change the entire, way that people can obtain the way they obtain guns, what type of guns they can obtain, what types of mental screenings they need to partake in, et cetera, et cetera. Like in Canada, for example, if you are divorced and you're trying to obtain a gun, your spouse, your ex-spouse, has to sign that they are okay with you getting that gun. And if they don't give you that release, you're not getting that gun, at least not legally. You know what I mean? And I think that the gun culture in this country really, unfortunately stems from something that our founding fathers, I don't think, ever intended, which was, the Second Amendment. And I think that, times were different then. They had muskets, like they didn't have semi-automatic, rifles and weapons and bump stocks and all the things that we have today. And so I just think that, we have our system is, I don't want to say our system is broken, because the truth of the matter is that our system in this country, and it's not just our system related to gun violence in this country, which is pervasive. It's our system, our prison system, our school systems. People say the systems are broken. They're not broken. They're functioning exactly the way they've been designed to function. They're not broken. We need to basically break them and rebuild them anew, because I think at this point it's like putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah, we need to start over. We need to close them completely.
Reset them.
Absolutely.
And Chantal is laughing because I know, and I'm going to tell you why. The other part is that I wanted you to share, you also build a really big community and a safe space of Women Rise Up.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. So after the 2016 election, like many people, and I'm not trying to be divisive in any way, I'm just being authentic to who I am. I welcome and love all people. But I personally, on a personal basis, was devastated by the results of the election. And I, experienced the emotions of grief. And after a few, weeks of sort of being angry and feeling dejected and shocked and sad and all these other range of emotions, I really thought about it and I said, okay, it's time to get up and actually do something. Stop complaining about it, right? And at that point, I already had the platform of the beach meditation, which was successful and had like thousands of, members and people and I felt I had a responsibility as a community organizer, as somebody with a platform, to actually, speak about the things that I thought were right and just, and help people figure out actionable ways that they could, rise up and basically come together as well and feel supported. So after the Women's March in Washington, which I attended with 3 of my really great friends. We sat together feeling all that energy from being in that crowd all day, And as we were sitting at a restaurant, enjoying a glass of wine and kind of trying to just recount what we had been through that day, we just looked at each other and thought, like, what do we do now? Like, what's the roadmap? Like, wow, we just had this great march, but there's no like next steps. There's nothing like that's tangible. Like, what do we do? So when we got back, we decided that, or actually that night, we created South Florida Women Rise Up, myself and three other really empowered, wonderful women from South Florida. And we decided that we would meet on a monthly basis and help people sort through all the madness that was coming in through social media, both from an informational perspective both to create safe spaces for people who are like-minded and who want to kind of row in the same direction, and help give people access to local speakers. Because one of our things that was really that we kind of settled on was, and you'll appreciate this, Gladys, is that we wanted to make local politics sexy again. Why? Because I think people have no interest in local politics. They don't know what precinct they're in. They don't know who their representative is that's going up to Tallahassee on their behalf. They don't necessarily know who their commissioners are. They don't understand how important it is to be involved locally. In some cases, even more than it is to be involved on the national or state or federal level, because that's where you can effectuate change. And so if people would have an understanding on a local level, we would have commissioners speak, we would have local state senators and representatives come and speak, and other organizations that people just didn't even know existed, other people trying to get things on the ballot, amendments passed on the ballot, things like all these different movements that I was even enlightened to, that I was like, man, where have I been for 40 years of my life that I had no idea what was happening, So that's really what South Florida Women Rise Up started as, and what it's now become is like this online forum where I think for a lot of people tell me that they only go to that page once a day to read the summary of like what happened, because they can't deal with watching the news, or constantly getting a news feed. But it's a safe space. So if people come there to really just be mean to each other, then they're booted off the page. It's a private page, so you have to request to be on it. But it's South Florida Women Rise Up. It's just a group on Facebook, and if there's actionable things that you would like to see on the page, you're more than welcome to post, and your post will be approved, and and we can continue to make local politics sexy again.
Well, I love the part that local politics can become sexy, because definitely it is way far beyond sexy. I got in like you said, I was complaining, and I heard a little voice saying, well, if you're complaining, do something about it. And that's how I ended up running a campaign in 2016. I literally it felt like it was in a movie.
Yeah.
That when all the campaign was going through, I was actually living through it. And my opponent was actually doing exactly the same thing as Trump was doing to Hillary. So I got really a lot of the bullying. I had never experienced the bullying in a sense of being frozen in the middle of the street. So that was very powerful, and I had to get out of it. And now, yes, I feel much stronger. It's been 4 years, and everybody out there, yes, I'm running for re-election. Not only I have one opponent, but I have two. And the one that ran against me last time is back. So I welcome the fight again. There's another opponent, and I welcome everything. And yes, we need to do something about it. Very far away from sexy. What I do have to say is that yes, you need to be involved. Things can change, but also what I found is that you need to go into this to help people, and not with a private agenda. Because that's the part where politician becomes a word that it's not respectable.
Right.
And that is the biggest lesson, that for me, it has become of what's best for the city, what's best for our community, as opposed to what can I get out of it.
Right. There's no ego in this work.
No. So it's very rewarding in one sense. It's not rewarding in the other. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So we'd love to hear Chantal introduce yourself. I wanted I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask Chantal, she has a very interesting story, which I'm not going to tell it today because we have her as our guest for the Power of the Heels with a disruptive challenge for women who dare to come the unexpected. Mm. So she's one of our speakers in that event. But I wanted to ask her because with everything that happened yesterday, we're again with the riots, again with the racial injustice. And I feel that we didn't learn anything. Like when I saw things yesterday and things escalating again, and then the National Guard is being deployed, and there was a video of what the police did. What have we learned? Like literally? So Chantal, you want to weigh on that before Shelly weighs on that again?
I first want to say hello to Shelly. I salute the divinity within you, wonderful work that you're doing. And Commissioner, thank you for the amazing work that you're doing and connecting women like us together. I honestly, I stand or sit in a very same position as Shelly. I really think we had to talk about or think about the intention. Is it the intention to correct or solidify what's going on? Mm-hmm. Or is the intention is to pacify it, you know, or really to correct what's really happening? And I think to your point, Commissioner, is that we have a lot of individuals seeking for office or are in office for, you know, whether they're in for the right reason or the wrong reason. And I think as citizens, similar to what Shelly says, that we have to be able to look at these systems that have been put in place, and the intention of those systems aren't set for freedom. They aren't set for results. Mm-hmm. So I really think that it's an individual approach, a community, a collective community responsibility, because no one is going to do it for us. That's why you woke up that day and say, you need to do something. Complaining and talking about it wasn't sufficient. Mm-hmm. And so I think whether we believe it or not, that we are enough and that we have it all, who we are our game changer, and that through our actions and our support and our resilience, our ability to step out and say, I'm not gonna stand for this, I stand for something different. And our ability to not compromise what we stand for. And it must be a sense of definiteness of purpose. The system purpose have been definite for a very long time. So if we want to make that change towards it, like she mentioned, we have to be definite in our process and purpose, and continue to collectively get together to find ways strategically, innovatively. This requires intention, it requires innovation, and it requires a sense of community, like-minded people, not for what some would consider what's in it for me.
Correct.
But truly, do you really want to do something?
Right.
And I think for me, that's just where it really starts. Is what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. What's in it for me as an individual? The injustice, hurting people, and how we become a society that is okay mm-hmm. with being okay with hurting other people. I don't care what color you are, where you from, your social status. We are all connected by a mysterious magnetic force. And for me to think that that I'm superior to the next person, and that, you know, the next person is inferior to me, that's a mental distortion. We are all created
Equal.
By one source, and we are all here for a purpose. And I think once we begin to identify that life belongs to everyone, who am I to say you need to not be alive because of where you're from? You know, socially, psychologically, spiritually. And I love the piece that Shelly mentioned earlier with just the spirituality where we come from, and sometimes societal too. We have a false sense of reality of what's so, and the societal constraint, the environmental constraint, the generational constraint, the religious constraint. It's just so much to address. I would say for me, my whole aim is to wake up on the right side of the bed every day for myself and extend myself to someone without wanting anything in return, giving hope to someone else, and offering a hand of help that would sustain someone else for the better.
Totally agree with you. I'm gonna tell you how I explained to my grandkids one day that you have 4 fingers. One is green, well, 5, but wait, one is green, one is yellow, one is black, one is white. And when they all sit down, they all become one. So which color do you like most? They're all the same.
Wow.
And that's so simple.
Fascinating.
That's really simple because you have the 4 fingers and you don't need to choose which one you like most. It's your 4 fingers. It doesn't matter if one is crooked, which I have one that's crooked, one is shorter, one is longer, but we're all the same.
Yeah.
Once we sit down, we become one person. So like you said, Shelly, how do we move forward?
I think we move forward by having that recognition, that cognition, recognizing that, to Chantal's point, like we're, you know, if we're okay with what's happening in the world because it's not affecting us, then we need to take a long look in the mirror and examine ourselves really deeply. Because that means we're coming from definitely a position of privilege, but also, you know, the things that are happening in the world, like whether it's COVID, whether it's financial, whether it's natural disasters, you know, due to climate change, et cetera, they know no bounds. Like these things are going to happen to everyone. And so if we look away now, you know, who's going to be there on our behalf when the time comes? And the reality is that it may be nobody, because we weren't there for anybody else but ourselves. And so I think the first thing we need to do is look deeply at ourselves. I think the second thing we need to do is start having uncomfortable and difficult conversations that are not yelling matches, but that really are in integrity with wanting to grow and learn more and challenge our ways of thinking and the ways that the systems that we grew up in and that have evolved. And then we need to empower ourselves. We need to basically rise up, and we need to, you know, connect, even if it's just one thing that we say, okay, this is important to me. You know, I feel passionate about saving the seas and the ocean. I feel passionate about, you know, the school system and primary education, whatever that thing is. If you feel passionate about it, if you feel called to it, find a tangible, actionable, and really, you know, just practical way that you can create change and help to be part of that change you want to see in the world.
I think that you're totally right. It's the fear of speaking out. It's the fear of being out there and being judged. I think that's the problem. Like I remember very clearly many, many years ago when I heard a senator, and she said that when a man wanted to run for politics, he just went and did it. And when a woman was asked, And she said, but I don't know anything about it. And I lived through that. When I got the calls that said I wrote something and that literally created a whole chain of events. And I got the calls, why don't you run? That's the first thing that I said, but I don't know anything about politics. I never, and that's the fear that we have. Yes, I didn't know anything, and it took me, I can tell you, more than a year to actually say, I remember I got home and I said, finally, today I understood 100% of what's going on. But it took me more than a year to understand it. Yeah. And I was already in it. Yeah. And that's the part that people are afraid of going into things that they don't know. And men just go in without thinking.
Right.
They get They get people to advise them, to tell them the whole thing, but we don't. We're afraid. So it's like what you said, get the fear out of it. And if you want to close with something, we're already at the end. On the contrary, we went a little over, but I loved what you both had to say. Thank you. So if you want to leave everybody with a nice message.
Sure. I'd like to invite all the Aventura residents to, and certainly if you're not an Aventura resident, that's fine too, but I want to direct you to pandemicoflove.com. And if you click on local communities under the state of Florida, you'll find the Give Help and the Get Help links for the city of Aventura. And Gladys and her team will be able to match you with a person in need, or if you are a person in need, we'll match you with a donor that can help you hopefully pay your bills, meet your needs, and feel like you're less alone in the world.
Before you go, I know that Pandemic of Love like literally grew into a global organization. Right. And you got the attention of a presidential candidate. Yeah. That's gonna help. Can you tell us, because that was like a wow. That for me was a wow moment. Can you tell us what it's all about, what that is about?
Well, so it was a Sunday evening and I received a phone call from a random number. And normally I wouldn't answer the phone from a number that I don't really know, but I thought, well, it's Sunday night, so telemarketers usually don't call on a Sunday evening, So I was like, I wonder what this is. So I picked up. And it was from the office of Joe Biden saying that that Joe and Jill Biden would like to speak to you. And is it okay if they call you? And I said, I already donated to the campaign. I don't know. I was trying to get them on the phone because I thought certainly they're trying to raise money. And they said, the person on the other line said, no, they're actually calling to talk to you about Pandemic of Love. And they're going to call you within the next hour. So I was in total disbelief. And I was no sooner to walk out to the living room to say to my husband, you'll never guess who's going to be calling me. Did the phone ring? And I said to my husband, turn your camera on. So then I put it on speaker. And it was that discernible voice of, Shelly, this is Joe. And I'm like, hey, Joe.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and Dr. Joe Biden was on the call as well. And I got to speak to them for quite a while, actually, about Pandemic of Love, about my work in Parkland, about our joint friend, Fred Guttenberg, who was actually one of the people speaking and endorsing Vice President Biden during the Democratic National Convention. And it really was such an amazing feeling because I felt like, and I think this was probably in late April, early May. And I felt, wow, number one person can make a huge difference in the world.
Wow. Yep.
So that validated it for me. And it was really a proud moment for me because I think when you're in the mix, when you're go, 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 you don't pause to assess because Gladys, there's just still so much of the journey and there's so much to still be done. So you're I'm not going to stop to pat myself on the back because,
There's no time.
Yeah, there's no time to pause, you know, but that was like a pause for me where I was like, oh yeah, like, wow, I feel really good. Like what I'm doing is making a difference and it's being acknowledged by really, you know, important people that are it's not for naught, and it's amazing. So I was very proud that day. It was really such an awesome memory and experience, and super fortunate to get to experience that.
And then you got the letter from another presidential candidate to support Pandemic of Love.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Oh, I know. It has been really nice, and I wish everyone would be like you, like that love, respect, the ethical part would be what reigns their life. And that's what it's all about.
It is. That is what it's all about, for sure.
It was like paying forward.
Yeah.
It's like paying forward because we're happy that we have what we have, but we really need to pay it forward and help the others that really need us at this point. You were also mentioning something that you grew up in a very religious family. And I've always thought that with all that in the Orthodox community, there are so strict rules. And I've always thought that why haven't they updated it with time? Like when the Bible was written, there were no cell phones. And that's exactly what you say. Our founding fathers did not realize that with the Second Amendment, there would be AK-15s that could kill thousands of people in 15 seconds. Right. So we all need to reset. We all need to update. And I know you're writing your book. Mm-hmm. I got inspired by your Post-its because I thought it was your to-do. Okay, I'm gonna do that today with all my to-do Post-it, but it's not, it's your book. It's gonna be published for next year. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to that. And thank you for everyone that's watching. I look forward to seeing you next week at 11 a.m. on Conversations With. We're having next week, it is a coincidence, but next week we're having my rabbi and the rabbi of the community, Rabbi Levi Forta, talking to us about the spiritual prayer.
Awesome.
So thank you. Until next week, stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Chantal. Be well.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.